So today, man, I've kind of been trying to get this format down for a little bit. To be perfectly honest with you guys, I see so much mythology and lyrics that it drives me crazy. Like I always want to talk about mythology and lyrics, right? So now I just need to figure out a format, I guess, where I felt comfortable doing it, or not just finding mythology and lyrics. It's also just finding symbolism in music, like just cultural symbolism. Lyrics. It's also in what's going on every day, right? Like, and to be honest, like the core of this is that I love good writing. Like I love good writing in any format. I always hoped I would be a good writer, and I still never give up on that, right? Although I'm getting to the third quarter, right? I'm like the beginning of the third quarter around here, right? And you know what it is? The third quarter, the game ain't over, right? You're clearly like you're in a battle with it right now. Like I'm in the game. I'm up going into the third quarter. And if I feel like I'm up going in the third quarter, I feel like I got a shot, right? I feel like it's gonna be all right. Look, I got work to do. But you know what I'm saying? Like in general, that's my mode. It's like, yeah, it's the third quarter. I haven't got this game put away. But man, so far we've done some good business coming into the early parts of the game, man, right? Like we really have. We've been executing, this other team's going at us hard, but man, we haven't given up in any way, man. We haven't let off the gas in any way. We have not surrendered or stepped back. Like this is a battle, man, You know what I'm saying? I feel like I got like 2 fouls right now. Like my foul situation is like, okay, I got 2 fouls. I got no text right now, right? So like going into the second half, I can feel loose. My field goal percentage is pretty good. You know what I'm saying? I want to get to the line a little bit more in life. Like I want to get to the line a little bit more, but look, I've done some damage from three, and I'm going to use that to open up the game right now. And I'm going to rely on good defense, man. I'm going to rely on having solid D all the way through. You know what I'm saying? Like I really do want to play turnover-free basketball, right? So like I'm zoning in on some stuff right here, and I could not resist getting into this song. If you're familiar with this song, this is Guns Go Bang. This is a song with Kid Cudi and Jay-Z, right? And I saw this song, or I got introduced to this song from the movie, the Western movie that they did, The Chosen. Wait, Guns. Let me find this. Guns Go Bang. Just so you guys can know exactly what I'm talking about, man. It was in the Netflix movie that Jay-Z did with Regina King. The Harder They Fall, right? So you guys probably know that flick. To me, it's a good flick, but a bit of a controversial flick. Even in the aspect in which you're doing it, I have some controversy with it. Nonetheless, I still saw a lot of good things in the flick. One of the things was some great actors, but also like a lot of the music in this film was really good. Like I felt like they really delivered on some music. So, and that tells you a lot, that despite me being like, like I love the look of the movie when I saw it. I like the pacing. I like how it felt. Right? It was a lot of it was black people in the Wild West, which we don't get a lot of opportunity to see. Right? So this was a setting, and I really enjoyed that part of it. I didn't like, and I'll be honest, like the portrayals necessarily of everybody kind of basically being like, a psychopath, right? Like that's kind of how I read it, right? That was kind of my take about it. Like, okay, these are representations of our cultural ancestors. So there's that part where I at least had a disconnect. I'm not gonna say I didn't like it. I'm not gonna say, I'm super critical of it, but I think it says a lot considering that I still really like the movie, right? I still love the soundtrack, and overall, it's a lot of good actors I really like. So I want to bring this up. It seems like I'm never gonna get it here, but this is a flick. The Guns Go Bang, right? And like I said, man, like the appreciation for good lyrics to me is still lost, right? Like sometimes people are writing some ridiculous stuff, but sometimes people are writing stuff that's actually brilliant and meaningful. And when I see someone layering meanings in a song like this, like they're doing this hoping that somebody's going to listen to that part, right? They know everybody's going to hear the music and dance and hear Guns Go Bang. They get that. But when they're lacing it with stuff like they're consciously like understanding what they're talking about, and that means whoever wrote this song, and I don't know who wrote it, also has a handle on mythology stories, like cultural stories, has a good handle on other cultures and history, historical context, and spiritual context. So without continuing to belabor all of that, right? Let's get right into it, because this is where it gets, this thing gets interesting right off the bat, and that's why it caught my attention. I listened to this song a million times, right? And so this song, personally, I find it to be just absolutely riddled with mythological symbols to it. It's got spiritual symbols. It's got this existential imagery. If you listen to the lyrics, the song itself sits inside this Western revenge story. So this is like, I would say, man, like early 1900s. I don't know, like 19. It's like before my grandpa. I know that much. Like 1990. My grandpa was born at, so I'm saying like late 1800s. I think is kind of the setting, Western town setting. And here's where it starts off. Like, this is where it gets, because he wastes no time. I think this is Cudi's line. This is Kid Cudi's first entrance to the song, okay? Now we're going to listen. This is important, okay? Avalon be damned. Venture foreign lands. Okay. Now, immediately, there's a major mythological reference in Avalon. So right off the bat, first word has a lot of loaded meaning. Avalon is in reference to the mythical paradise island that's tied to King Arthur. Okay, so now we're immediately stepping into Arthurine literature at this point, right? So now I kind of understand like what your influences are a little bit. This is a place of healing and eternal rest. And I interpret this as saying Avalon be damned kind of rejects this fantasy comfort place, right? In my interpretation, it rejects this myth of safety, where this lyricist is embracing harsher reality, venture foreign lands. So this sounds like to me a break of like abandoning this innocent viewpoint of the world immediately. This is rejecting this idea of a different, an external heaven and peace. And it's also very much a way of looking at someone walking away from a belief system. To say that your heaven or your Elysium is to be damned, that's walking away from a belief system, right? Venture foreign lands. So it can be interpreted as someone leaving their belief system. And then I feel like he follows it up with some absolute excellence, right? I laid my sword in the sand. I've made my peace with man. So this is a person who is, laying the sword, is literally a soldier retiring, walking away from warfare, choosing peace over violence, right? And we see this story like of the absolutely worn out soldier all the time, right? They want to chill. They want to finally find that peace that they haven't been able to find. I made my peace with man. It's very powerful in what we see, okay? And I laid my sword in the sand, and this is the part that I like. I laid my sword in the sand. This speaks of desert landscapes, right? Image-wise in your noodle, you're speaking of like desert landscapes. You're speaking of it, brings up imagery of ancient lands. It gives ideas of impermanence, of burial, of time. So it feels like he's conveying something that, we would look at in biblical or ancient texts just by the imagery that he's putting forth. And making his peace with man, obviously, we can really see that as, I want to end conflict with humanity. I'm accepting mankind as it comes, right? I accept human nature for mankind. I've made my peace with man. Now, he follows this up with, they lay a violent feast as far as my eyes can see. So after he speaks of finding eternal peace or finding personal peace, he's talking about the world, that the world around him is consumed by violence. This is what he's walking in, as far as my eyes can see. And this violence piece. So this is definitely going back to ideas of war and revenge. This feast idea, remember, a feast is something that was also communal. A feast is not an individual evil. It's not an individual event. A feast is specifically a communal event, meaning that the community or civilization was participating in this violent feast, right? They lay a violent feast as far as my eyes can see. That's vast, right? That is a vast feast that they're laying out, right? And they consume this together. This is their culture consuming this violence. Now, this next line, which was just gold for me, right? I seek a golden fleece. Just epic for me. Obviously, I really was in tune as a kid in the Greek mythology, and I instantly understood this reference right here. And I love it when I get something right off the bat, right? And this is all about, like, you know, it was the impossible quest is what this was. This was to be enlightenment. Like, in a lot of ways, like, you know, the golden fleece does mean a couple of things, right? And we've seen it as an implement for healing. We've seen it as a symbol of kingship, divine purpose. This is also seen as the ultimate reward for suffering, the golden fleece and what it bestowed. So, you know, you can slice particularly how you interpret this part. I definitely see it as symbolizing this level of enlightenment. That's how I seem to see it. And it's also at the same time rejecting violence. I see your feast. I am seeking a golden fleece. I'm rejecting your ideas of violence and seeking redemption. I'm seeking meaning. I'm seeking spiritual fulfillment. I want peace. I want the enlightenment that we'll all seek. Okay. One day you will make your peace. And this, in a way, it really is both warning and very prophetic, right? You will seek, you will find your peace. You will. What that peace is going to cost you along the way is really the warning part. The prophecy is that you will find it. The prophecy is still a hopeful viewpoint of mankind. You will find your peace. Is it because nature forces you to do it? And what is the cost that you pay? What is the damage that you do, and the cost that you ultimately pay to get to that point, right? How much of yourself do you give up along that route? So this is kind of saying this is a journey. It is a journey. I'm defining that you're going to understand the words that I'm telling you right now. You're going to understand it later, right? I mean, and this is classic. This is classic wisdom speaking to naivety, right? Not naive mindsets, learning from wisdom, right? This is how they talk. Think about how your ancestors, your pops, and everybody talk to you. All right, you're gonna find out that exactly, like, a lot of times you'll look back at what your parents told you, your grandparents, and you're like, wow, the stuff that you said is exactly what happened, right? So again, in this light, you will find your peace, meaning you will find this path, despite the fact that you seem completely lost right now, right? Where you're going is all bad. But I feel confident you're going to find your peace, okay? And then he gets into the passage where, of course, he talks about, going to war, reject his hand. But what I really thought was the deeper part was right into Jay-Z's lyrics, okay? Now, Jay-Z, all of a sudden, like, man, after this absolutely mythic setting, right? Jay-Z comes in. Hold on, man. I'm cooking here, right? So Jay-Z comes in and immediately flips this dynamic. Never stepping away from this mythic setting. Never stepping away from talking about the divine. Never doing any of that. Jay-Z flips this like absolutely on its head, right? So he starts off, like, let's just go with it, right? Dot 17 with the switch, it'll change you. Now, the dot 17, I believe, is a reference to the clock 17. This is what I believe, like, this is the reference to, because I've seen this in other associated works, right? Like, I've chronicled a little bit of this, okay? But always let's do our research on this. We can only get better. And with the switch is referring to an illegal modification that converts it to automatic fire, right? So immediately he brings up this very poetic imagery, dot 17 with the switch. It'll change you. And the reason that it'll change you is both a wordplay. It changes both the possessor and it changes the object of its ire. Let's say that, right? It'll change you. Dot 17 with a switch, it'll change you, okay? So I look at that and I'm like, okay, so immediately we're talking about this not just as physicality, but also spiritually. The weapon can become a symbolism of, like, this corruption. It will change you, right? And he's very open about it. And then he follows this up, like, shockingly with this, Mama always said you was an angel. So this is stark contrast, like, forced together literally in one sentence from the next sentence. I'm giving you a completely different set of imagery, just like that. Not unconsciously. Not by accident is this happening. Okay, I want us to remember that. Okay, Mama always said you was an angel. This is embracing like emotional innocence, emotional absence, like broken protection, right? I mean, it gets really, really deep. He's really, really deep. Papa got ghosts, okay, but these doors he never came through. He got ghosts, but those walls he never came through. So I take this in a lot of this. Like Papa got ghosts is obviously wordplay on one. Papa got ghosts in the sense that he left. So there's that play. He got ghosts, but he was never the ghost that came through these walls. He was never here, even spiritually. He was physically ghost, physically non-existent, and even spiritually non-existent. So it is a play on connecting with ancestors, right? If he was ghost, his spirit could have been here if he had been here, right? So he is completely gone. And more interestingly, I think, to me at least, is this next line, right? Stained glass windows on the church, I hope they stain proof. Now, obviously, he's right off the bat calling something out about religious holiness, morality, institutional purity in the reference to the church. And obviously, they're stained windows. I hope they're stain proof. I hope they're stain proof is a wordplay like stain as being blood on your hands or guilt or any type of corruption. I hope you're stain proof, right? This is where he's coming with this. So again, changing that imagery and flipping that. Because when the tides change, I'm trying to stain you, right? This speaks of like, the tides change. This is about power shift. This is about revenge, coming back around. This is about the stain, meaning I bloody you, I mark you, I expose you, right? I'm trying to stain you. This is to highlight your corruption. So this is some heavy stuff that he's coming with in this passage as well, okay? And then to complete it, he makes this like very insightful references to seeking revenge. Plotting for revenge, dig your grave too. Right off the bat, we deal a lot with, this is kind of an old saying that if you want, you seek revenge, dig two graves, right? Whatever you want engraved, what your tombstone gonna say too. And I think that goes back to like culturally, if I go to Black Americans here, culturally, that is an expression born out of that Western environment about digging two graves. So we know where that comes from. Crosses on the head of an angel, which he could be possibly identifying himself, right? So this is again about childhood. Child, the way that his mother once saw him, his innocence, right? All that stuff being lost, but still being faithful. Still saying that he's faithful. He's speaking of the grave markers. He's speaking about this burden of sin, right? Sins of the father darken this doorstep. I became you. So this is probably the core, to me, this is the core of the entire section right here. It's references the concept of inherited sin, right? So again, like I'm just think about the information that these guys have to understand before they sat down and wrote this, right? This is not happened by accident, right? So he's making a biblical reference. Children carrying the consequences of their father, the abandoned son himself becoming what he resented. And that's the tragic part, that he hated the absence, he hated the violence, he hated the damage, he hated all those things, and yet he became those things. Faithful to the end. Faithful to what? Like the things that he speaks of are revenge, survival, hostility, right? Loyalty, his own personal code, and violence itself that it could be. So he speaks of staying all of this in line, right? So this is abandonment, this is inherited violence, this is like a collapse of innocence. And that's kind of where he takes it through. The bullets with your names drew, cock back, aim, shoot. Brilliantly delivered, just in a way that is absolutely poetic, right? Like we have to be honest with what he came through on this. And finally the end where Cuddy wraps this up. Fools forever tries the fool. Nothing, but there's nothing no one can do. Just holding on to when they lose. But I'm making red of the blues. Well, this is like, again, this is a hard one because this feels like a revenge line. I'm making red of the blues. And I think that can be interpreted in a couple of ways. And I'm going to have to look at this more intently. I dilate the stream, fly and live in the dream. Nothing is quite what it seems. I'm in a sky mezzanine. So to me, man, there's so much loaded within that what he's directly speaking about. Is he speaking of meditative states? Is he speaking of transcendence? This is all that's kind of loaded in it, in what it is. And like I said, I think I pulled a lot of like mythology out of this, like the things that I've seen. But I'm thoroughly impressed by how clever these guys are and how much wordplay they're putting into what they're bringing before us. Like this is a fully cooked and served meal, baked with rhythm and vibrance, but also like deep meaning, symbolism, historical reference, like all this stuff in there, speaking about the spiritual world at the same time, like all the song that we just call hip hop. So I just kind of wanted to do a MythLab on lyrics. I kind of been wanting to angle it for a little bit. So yeah, this is my first run through it. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section as always. Thank you for stopping in, Ms. Pope. Thank you. And join the channel, like and subscribe. Like I'll be on this track for a while now. So I'll be back and I'll probably do another MythLab. I totally forgot what I have loaded, but I worked on it yesterday. And oh yeah, it's gonna be a good one. I'm gonna go back to The Boys, which we got the season finale coming up soon. So I'll be back with that later on this afternoon.